everyone. So nice to see you all. I see some familiar faces in the audience today, so thank you all for coming. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and to share this space with these wonderful, talented humans next to me. Before we kick off, I did want to sort of acknowledge that obviously the world is quite heavy at this time, and it has been for quite some time. So the fact that we can all sit here together in community and be here and share the same space is really quite special. So thank you all for showing up and being here. I guess so much of what we focus on and what we do in animation is in alignment with storytelling. So we'll probably start off by jumping in and having our talented panelists talk about their career journeys and how they landed their current role. And Amanda, I might sort of kick off by having you jump in with the first question.
Absolutely. So I graduated from SVA almost 4 years ago now out of their computer animation and visual effects program. I landed my first internship working at Ardman Nathan Love through one of my thesis advisors. And from then, I just started freelancing ever since. And I've been really lucky to go to many different studios, from getting to work on live action to all CG, and it's just been great to have so many different opportunities to meet new people.
Thank you. Dominic, do you want to jump in and share your story?
Yes, I too am a graduate of the School of Visual Arts from their MFA/CA Master's Computer Arts Department 2019. Prior to that, I did studies in advertising at the University of Florida for my undergrad years, but that career did not suit my calling, which is why I joined SVA. And then from there, I landed an internship with Titmouse, and the rest is history.
Awesome, and not to steal Frank's thunder, but it sounds like the two of you overlapped at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started maybe at a different decade, but, but like I graduated in 2000.
Shared space.
Yeah, shared spaces.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the industry?
So, I mean, for me, it's more about, I study an MFA/CA program and doing installation. So then from there on, I learned a lot of animation and design with that space. And somehow I had to pay the bills. So then I ended up in animation and motion graphics.
Not too shabby. Each of you have such unique roles in the industry. Could you kindly maybe expand upon, your day-to-day positions and how that sort of sits within the animation pipeline? I guess, Dominic, if you want to jump in.
So I do storyboards, which is essentially mapping out how an animation or how anything visual that you see in a final rendered form will look from start to finish. So a lot of my day-to-day deals with reading the scripts that writers write. I'm also in close communication with directors, making sure that the visual goal that they have in mind when they see the script is realized through us, the board artists. So also a lot of drawing. So I'm drawing every day.
So I started off as a CG generalist, which meant I touched almost every part of the pipeline, especially on the look-dub side. So anything from modeling, texturing, shading, lighting. And then I later just really fell in love with lighting and said I want to hone in on this and do more specialized work there. So now I primarily work as a lighter for the most part. And what that entails is I'll get a color script from someone, and I'm basically setting the mood of the piece, the tones, the values, so the final image that you see is all the color, lighting, shading is what I do.
So my main focus is in design animation, so then it's similar to storyboard, but then we create style frames for commercials in a shorter sense rather than a long form story. So it's kind of coming in. The example here is at a 15 and 30-second spot where we create the design and worked out the animation for it.
Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of our students or guests within the space are kind of wondering, what are some of the programs you might need to have proficiency in order to fulfill each of your roles? Is that something that you could expand upon? Frank, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay.
And we'll work our way back here.
It's I think the journey of it is always being a learning experience. The tool set always grows. There's always new tools coming in market, and everything we need to do. In the end of the day, it's always find the right tool, what you want to present. For example, for taking what I had did for the HP spot there, it's kind of the Adobe Creative Suite. So it's After Effects, Illustrator to do design, Photoshop, in mix, and sometimes when you get into more 3D, like in broadcast world, like sometimes like Cinema 4D is one of my major tools as well.
I primarily work in Autodesk Maya, and then a little bit of Nuke for the compositing side. And then for texturing, I work in a program called Substance Painter. It used to be Mari, but we're kind of a little bit leaning away towards that now. And then I would say one that's gotten a lot more popular pretty recently, the last couple of years, is Blender. It's come a long way as a program, and especially for students or people who don't have the financial means or access to pay for an Autodesk membership, yearly or monthly, Blender is a really great open source 3D software.
And so for the industry standard, Storyboard Pro is pretty much something that you need to have good knowledge base of if you want to be a board artist. So long as you know how to open Blender and Maya, you'll be fine as well, because sometimes we do need 3D assets to sort of navigate how we expand backgrounds and whatnot, but Storyboard Pro is key.
Thank you. So curious in the audience, just show of hands, how many of you are familiar or have worked with Maya? Oh, a lot of raised hands in this audience. This is awesome.
God bless you.
Cinema 4D? Okay. A few of you. After Effects? Oh, nice. That's the majority right there. Just a curiosity. Kind of curious as well as sort of speaking in the vein, we've obviously talked more technically about softwares. What are some of the skills you might need to sort of fulfill each of your roles?
For storyboarding, excuse me, I think, well, I can't speak for y'all, but I think having traditional sense of anatomy is just good to have, generally speaking, especially with human forms, because when you know the rules and basics of how the human looks, you can then bend and warp and shape as you see fit. But definitely having strong technical drawing skills is a plus. And also writing skills don't hurt for storyboard because, again, it is a part of the storytelling phase. So having knowledge of how a story should begin, go through climax and end, helps you along that journey.
I think as a lighter, the most important part of it comes from training your eye, learning how to pick up on the small details like of color values, color matching, specularity values. Because as much as you need those technical skills of setting up all your render layers and sampling, the final image is based on what you're seeing. So the more that you do it and the more that you're really comparing your renders, whether it's to your reference images or to whatever it is that you're trying to match, the more technically detailed your eye will become and the better lighter you're going to become.
I think within motion graphic space, it's as much as about design as well as animation. So like something that I tend to get overlooked is like, for example, is type. Like type is so important in this space right now. People don't turn on audio anymore. So then how do we look at type and how that shows up? That kind of becomes like a soft skill like people look at.
Yeah, that's a really great point. A lot of my dear friends at Buck and Hornet always talk about type being a skill to refine as an artist. So I appreciate you sharing that. I have recognized a few familiar faces in the audience, some of whom belong to some students that I'm familiar with. So with that said, I think would love to hear from each of your perspective, what are some advice that you can offer students who are essentially preparing for a career in animation as they're about to graduate? What are some words of wisdom you might have for them as they sort of work on their portfolios and work to expand their careers?
One thing I noticed is think about your art class or design class critique and then multiply it by tenfold. That's how you deal with clients.
That is fantastic advice.
Yeah.
I definitely am in alignment with you on that one.
Yeah. So that's something that's a skill you have to learn. That I have to gradually pick up. It's like to kind of grow that skin in a way.
Very well said.
My favorite piece of advice to give students is I always tell them that even as a work in progress, even as you're learning, even as you're still in school, you still have value to offer. Your art and what you have to give, because it's coming from you and no one else can be you still inherently have value. And I feel like so many people stop themselves short and they're like, I don't want to reach out to that person or send that email because I'm not worthy of their time. But you are worthy of that time because you're showing up for yourself and you're in these classes and investing in your education. So don't stop yourself. Really show up for yourself and put yourself out there and know that you do have value even when you're still learning.
It's beautifully said. Thank you, Amanda.
I can't go after that, can
You have to. You have to.
I? I would say don't be afraid of a career shift. Career shifts do happen, especially when the career that you're in currently may not be your calling. For me, like I mentioned before, I did advertising in my undergrad years and found out that that just had nothing to do with what my genuine skill set was. So I took time off and then I applied for the MFA program here and just sort of, started from scratch essentially. But it wasn't a failure or a setback necessarily. It was me building the foundation for a new come up. So yeah, don't be afraid to make a shift if you need to.
Absolutely. And I've seen a lot of, and I'm sure each of one of us here has seen a lot of careers evolve from different, artists migrating from the 2D to the 3D worlds, artists becoming producers, talented ones at that. So there's a lot of variety of different career paths within that space. So what are some entry-level roles for those in the audience who might be interested in hearing that exist in the world of animation? Like, are there any, in addition to that, and expanding upon this question, what are some training programs that you might all recommend for those who want to pursue a career? It's a double-edged question there, but
It's a tricky one. Like, the way I grow my skills is always based on need basis. Like when you kind of create a problem for yourself, then you're trying to figure out how to solve it. And then YouTube become like a great place to find anything you want to solve at the moment. But it's a sense of like, how do you create that project for yourself to kind of continue to grow yourself. And that's the skill that I think that really helps you to kind of propel you forward.
yeah, that self-motivation, I think that's very relevant. How many of you are sort of experiencing something similar? Couple of raised hands? Lower raised hands?
Yeah.
And so do we say rules or roles?
Roles, excuse me.
Roles, okay. I was just making sure. So I know for me, my first role in the animation industry was a storybook artist, which was essentially me dumbing down, in the professional sense, scripts into an 8-page book that would be pitched to audiences that would then get moved into a finalized script. So that's a role that you can look out for. Yeah.
On the CG side, I think stepping into a generalist role when you're first starting, unless you're going to a very specialized larger company, is probably a great point of entry, because the more that you can do, the more you can help out with, the more valuable you would be. And I think some jobs like that would be camera tracking and creating layouts, just simple stuff, even not render wrangling, but like helping out with lighting once there's already a master and just getting those renders through to the farm. And as far as supplementing your learning, I second what Frank said about YouTube. I love watching Mike Tanzillo. He runs TDU and has a really great lighting program that you can enroll in, and then you download all the assets, and it's great to build your own projects from there.
I also forgot to mention Storyboard Revisionists before being Storyboard Artist. Revisionist is also a great entry-level position.
It certainly is. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
I'll sort of oh, sorry, go ahead.
So just kind of adding on, like if as a role, then it's like motion graphics. Like there's like junior associate level of designers that would include like motion graphics, and that kind of how you as an entry level.
So furthering the optimism in this space, kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that we are still very much in a pandemic, but that there's obviously a lot of excitement in the world of animation. So with that said, wanted you each to sort of speak to like how animation productions have managed to stay afloat during the pandemic, as it were. Like, have any of you experienced any challenges throughout the past couple of years? Because we're sort of going into the third year, as it were. And just curious as to what each of your perspectives have been. And have they changed?
Well, it's one thing is that the pandemic, and I say this wholeheartedly with understanding the sensitivity of the time. My industry, and specifically for me, I got a promotion during the pandemic. I bumped up to a storyboard artist because just the roles they were needed. I'd also I received the most contacts from people looking for animation just because animation was that one skill that didn't require to be in person. It didn't require live filming. If you had the equipment at home, you could thrive and survive without issue or too much challenge. So I would dare say that the pandemic didn't just keep animation afloat, it sort of set it to a new bar in terms of people seeing, okay, the limitations sort of got moved up in terms of what people can do through animation during that time.
Very nicely said.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. Like during the pandemic, like the past 2 years, like the demand for video had greatly increased. Like overall, I would say like across the board. And then even like with the growth of like social media and people like, especially in motion graphics, like there's always a need for some type of animation that could be integrated into a video potentially, or it could be in like a full-on animated animation that you can kind of see on the post. So there's definitely like a huge growth within that.
I remember when we first went into lockdown, it was still very recently from when I graduated, so I was not equipped with these really fancy home systems that a lot of my colleagues had. And I remember running to Best Buy the night before because I was supposed to start almost booking the next day. And I was like, I just need a monitor, like I just need anything at this point. And everything was sold out except for like the really, really fancy ones. So that was a bit crazy and hectic, but eventually we made do, and I would say if anything, the work opportunities just increased during pandemic because so many outlets switched to more CG, more computer-based advertising, so then our jobs also increased, and yeah.
You bring up systems, which I really appreciate because I think that's an interesting matter to bring up when it comes to working with your respective studios. Did each of your studios send you a system to operate from at home? Or did you have to operate on your own equipment?
The system was provided, but then one thing you kind of need personally is a pretty fast internet. I think that would really bump your upload and download speeds. That's so important.
I didn't have fancy equipment, so I had my own stuff, but I just had my little 13-inch Cintiq and my MacBook, which is expensive, but yes.
I see some nodding heads in the audience. What about you, Amanda? Did you operate with your own system, or did you?
I had my own system. I'm actually still working off of my MacBook because I am able to remote. So I got a really nice monitor, and I got a Wacom tablet, and we've been good. Some studios, depending on where you're freelancing, will offer to send you a monitor or a Cintiq something if you absolutely need it. But yeah.
You treated yourself. So what adjustments have each of your teams made during the pandemic? I'm curious as to, have there been changes? Are each of you ever in the office or back in the office? I'll sort of jump in with you just because of what we spoke about earlier.
So we're still remote for Titmouse for the most part. One of the things that my immediate team has started doing more so is more group and video chat calls just to have face-to-face conversations. It's kind of the con of being remote is that you don't get that same cross-pollination in terms of having people with you working within the same studio. So we do have more definite chats and G-chats and video conversations just to talk to each other, cry, laugh, weep, all that good stuff.
Lots of crying.
I've mainly been working for a company out in LA, so regardless, I would have been remote. But I would say it opened the opportunity to work with people from all over the world. Like I've gotten to work with people from Europe, from just all different time zones, and I think that's really cool because there's such talented people everywhere, and location can kind of be a hindrance sometimes. So being able to work across different time zones and meet people that you wouldn't has been a lot of fun.
I started my new job like during the pandemic, so like being currently within like 6 or 7 months right now. So I would say like starting a job during the pandemic is kind of present a whole new type of challenge. Like being the introverted person I am, I realized that you have to reach out to people and just to be connected, and it's part of that building process. And then I realized how important like that connection is, like when you have working with your teammates and working with people outside of your teams, and that's started taking note. Like I started to jot notes down, just okay, I better make sure I schedule myself to meet someone one at a time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little bit different. They're working during pandemic, and then versus like before everyone's in the same room, you get to meet everyone quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
If I could piggyback off of that.
Absolutely,
You guys mentioned connections. One of the coolest things about the pandemic was that when we would do some of these meetings, people we would never really talk to or engage with in meetings were sort of called into it just because they were curious about a situation. So some people on other shows would come into our meetings, and I remember one of the times the writers who, while we do have the scripts, we don't necessarily always talk to the writers, so she was able to join in one of our kickoff meetings, and it was nice to be able to put faces to people who you normally wouldn't see, also because they're all the way on the other side of the United States, but yeah, that was definitely a nice thing to experience.
I appreciate you sharing that. You touch upon some challenges, Frank, just sort of that we experience in the pandemic, and human connection is obviously so important, because obviously so many of us, even to this day, still feel moments of isolation just because we're all in these different spaces and working together, and communication is so important. Curious if either of you have also experienced similar challenges or different challenges throughout this time. Totally putting everyone on the spot, but that's what I'm here for.
I think it shows that I've just been really lucky to work with some great companies. Everyone's been a really good team player, and I think it just speaks to our industry how well we're able to pivot when we have a challenge. So many studios were already working on AWS and cloud-based rendering before pandemic, and then when it came, it kind of just fast-tracked them to make that turn to get it expedited even faster. I think sometimes you have those unexpected days, like we had a month or so ago where AWS completely went down and nobody could work, and of course the deadlines still don't move. So I'd say stuff like that, where you get like an unexpected snow day type situation has been fun. But as far as just like not being in person and having to work remote, we've definitely pivoted and been able to work around that.
Great.
Say pretty much the same.
That's why it's great you're all interested in animation, I suspect, so awesome. Another question I want to just pose to you all is, there have been a lot in the way of streaming platforms, and sort of kind of want to get a sense from each of your perspectives how you feel, or how each of you feel it's impacted our industry, or the animation industry, I should say.
I would say streaming
For
has...
the better?
I would say for both. Personally, just speaking, just streaming, it just always, it affords convenience, right? So you're not going to miss something that's being shown live when you have access to it 24/7. But I know personally speaking, when I have the TV on, I feel like somebody else is really in the room with me. So it's a little more comforting versus, Disney Plus. Are you still there? Yes, Disney Plus. I'm still here. Yes, Hulu, I'm still here.
Still watching.
But yes, I would say it's also just given much more room to content to be uploaded and shown on a worldwide basis, which of course is a pro from the streaming perspective. But.
Yeah, I think before, I was working at a Disney Plus marketing team, so I would say with the pandemic, the product kind of started to sell itself, and then the streaming industry is a little bit different too, as far as how you see things on TV versus the back to movie days. Recently I was happy, I went to see Scene 2 with my daughter. So then I still miss that, that physical experience. So I think that's kind of the little bit of difference. And I do look forward to when you have both at the same time, so you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's just so much more content now, and being able to be in a shared space with others and watching something together is something I also am very nostalgic about too.
I feel like I see so much more now because of how much content is put out, and then the ease of access of being able to watch it at home, on your computer, wherever. But at the same time, I feel like I miss so much because there's always something new coming out, always something new that somebody's watching, and it's kind of hard to keep up with it all, or a bit overwhelming. But it's exciting because I think it's expanded what we can produce in CG. Again, a lot more jobs are created because a lot more shows are being created. Even if it's in live action, they always have set cleanup or set extension, or more people have moved towards stylized 2D, 3D animation as well. So that's been fun.
Absolutely. Now, Amanda, you and I have talked about this, some, very high priority topics that are of the utmost, sorry, I keep slapping my mic over here, that are of the utmost importance to us in this industry. And I'm curious if each of you can expand upon this really, collective important conversation of, why is diversity so important in our industry, or in, the world of television and the world of film?
I mean, the answer's pretty simple because you out here are diverse. You're the audience members, right? So when you go to watch things, you want to make sure that you watch things you can identify with and tie yourself to. And so when there's an absence of that, there's an absence of connectivity. So, yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Not the most eloquent ending, my bad.
Yeah, it's extremely important because if you never see yourself or people that look like you in those roles of leadership or even in the same room at the same table being able to contribute, it makes you feel left out or that you're not a part of the conversation or that you don't belong to be there. And that's not true because you do belong there. And I also think bringing more diversity and inclusion onto the big screen and TV in general is so helpful because when you never see yourself again, it really can colorize your self-worth and how you perceive yourself and how you show up for yourself in your life. And I remember when I saw Crazy Rich Asians, when it had come out, it was the first movie in well over a decade that was an all-Asian cast. So that was like my whole life growing up, never seeing myself in normal stories, never seeing myself as beautiful or worthy just because I was Asian. And you don't realize what kind of impact that has on you until you realize that it's been lacking from you your whole life. So I love that our rooms are becoming more diverse, that we're actively trying to bring on people of all different backgrounds and all different stories, because when we do that, we're going to bring more experiences and more, just more opportunities that weren't always there before.
Yeah, I think with that, it's like the amount of content that we get to see in different stories. Like it's an offer of different perspective and insights too. Like, I don't know how many people follow like different Korean dramas that's being shown more and more in Netflix. It's a nice to see like there are different type of stories being told, and then it's also like offering like a variety of content that we get to experience.
Thank you. I'm personally very much involved with Women in Animation as an organization when it comes to mentees and mentorship, and curious if each of you can expand upon some networks or organizations for when, that we can suggest to our lovely audience when it comes to, finding connection and expanding upon this connection.
That one's a hard one.
I can go if you
You
want.
can go ahead.
All right, so
I was looking at you, Amanda.
okay. So I actually started my own mentorship and coaching services, kind of thanks to pandemic. I had originally started as a coach through Access BFX, and then I also joined Rise Up Animation, where both of these platforms offered opportunities for students who didn't have the financial means to attend like big universities or didn't have as much access to the industry based on where they were, to meet one-to-one with a mentor and really hone in on their skills and grow their portfolio, learn about the industry. So I did that for a bit, and then I started offering my own one-to-ones where I actually coach current students and recent grads on how to build up their network, how to personally brand their portfolios and their websites and really get their foot in the door.
I would say two organizations that they don't necessarily have mentorship individual programs, but they're great resources to find those programs. One is Diverse Tunes, as the name sounds, and also Black Women Animator, BLKWMN Animator. Great resources in terms of finding mentorship programs, and just, also they also have good interviews with people who are in the industry, similar to what we have going on here. So it's those are two highly recommended sources.
Thank you. What excites you, each of you, about the future of this industry? Just curious from each of your own perspectives.
The technology and the change itself, that to me is super exciting. Like if you go back and watch Pixar, like the first Toy Story versus the fourth one,
Oh, yes.
it's a world of difference.
Oh, yes.
And then this it's a continual growth of what we're doing and what we're presenting to the world. It's a very fun process to kind of keep tabs on.
How many of you are excited for Lightyear? Okay, lots of raised hands. I appreciate that.
I think I'm You know, animation is based on storytelling, and I'm always excited to see what stories we can tell next, especially with that shift in technology. Just seeing how much we can do. I don't know if any of you have seen Shang-Chi, but the visual effects and everything that they did on that end of it to bring that story to life was so exciting, and I'm so excited to see what more will come in the future.
I think excitement for me is happening more so behind the scenes, especially at the writers' table. So, you know, diversity in that segment is growing at a consistent, well, I shouldn't say rapid, but a consistent pace. And so, you know, when you start with the writers' table, that's going to affect how the screen looks itself. So I'm excited that more people are having more confidence to step into those roles that normally wouldn't have.
Thank you. I'm conscious that a lot of, you know, studios are starting to focus on immersive or experiential, you know, interactive. You know, what areas from each of your perspective do you feel like businesses are growing? You know, looking forward and, you know, into the future, not just tomorrow, but like months from now, as it were. You know, in what areas of the business do you see opportunities or more jobs being available?
I'm gonna wait.
I really see the demand for 3D is gonna grow exponentially because even just like based on what Meta or Facebook had announced, like how much money they're investing into the metaverse, even though I don't personally involved in that, but then you can see like,
aligned.
yeah, the amount of like the investment of money they're kind of putting into it, that you can see the amount of 3D growth that I think it's going to grow exponentially.
I think our skill sets are also growing through social media, especially in this day and age where everyone's trying to start their own business using social media platforms because they're free, which is smart. But that also means that they're looking towards people like us, designers, who can help bring their brand and their vision to life. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. And then outside of the social platforms, I think also just in-person immersive experiences, because people love IG and what they can get trending out there, and just having CG and like visual effect interactions where they can actually go and do their pictures and whatever. I feel like I've seen a lot more of that come up.
I feel like, I mean, software engineers have always been pivotal in terms of bringing, you know, especially 3D animation to life. With the growth of AR and VR, sort of the merriment, is that a word? The marrying of
Both are words.
thank you, of animation into VR and AR space. I think that's definitely on the rise, and so that'll present itself with a lot of openings for especially people who are just good at coding and just understanding how the tech itself works.
Yeah, with that said, are there any coders in the audience? Any raised hands? Oh, there are a few. Can count a few. Yeah, good number. Nice. With the idea, I mean, I know that we're going to be migrating into a Q&A quite soon, but with that said, you know, I'm conscious that we do have, once again, a lot of rising seniors or future graduates in our audience. I'm curious from each of your standpoints, you know, what is some advice that you can offer as they're about to graduate and pursue these next opportunities, whether it's about personal branding or whether it's about how they sort of enter the world. What are some suggestions as to how they might develop themselves and make themselves marketable or of interest to future opportunities or future companies?
I think it's
Okay.
I think it's important to know the company that you're applying for. So a lot of times my mentees will come to me and be like, I just sent off my reel to Disney, ILM, and Netflix. And it's like, great. But when you look at Disney and ILM, for example, their media and their styles are so different from each other that having one reel might not hit all of the needs that those people are trying to hire for. And I always tell them, you know, if you don't hear back, that doesn't mean that you're a bad artist or that you're not capable of doing it, but you have to play smart and you have to realize, like, this is the skill set that people need for whatever show that they're running, and you need your work and your portfolio to reflect those needs that they're hiring for. And yeah, it does take time, and no one wants to sit there and make like 3 reels or 3 resumes, but it will really help you in the end when you know what you're applying for.
Yeah, knowing your audience is always really important.
That was essentially what I was going to mention was the portfolio aspect. If you know that you're interested in storyboarding, character animation, or character design, you need to have 3 portfolios for each of those. You shouldn't have one meshed one and then apply in that manner. It's best to have a succinct, solid portfolio that shows off that particular strength or interest of yours, and then you go from there.
Absolutely.
You know, one thing our think the MFACA lead told us that it's your peers just as much as important as your like what kind of comes along.
Absolutely.
Because then everyone's going out for a job, even though at the same time you're competing, but at the same time we're working in a profession that it's such a small world, and we are all connected in a way that it's really kind of opens up to you to a lot of new opportunities.
And it is a cliche, but don't let the no's get you down. Don't let the rejections take you to that point of just like giving up. It's part of the process. I actually applied for visual storytelling as my MFA application. I didn't get in, and then eventually I found computer arts, and then that's how I got into the school. So the no that you see today will be the yes for something tomorrow.
Yeah, that really resonates. I think I don't want to speak for each one of you, but I feel like each one of us has had rejections in our careers.
Once
and
or
that's made
twice.
us, several times in my case, and that only makes us stronger. Another question I'd like to ask each of you is that you've each been students, you've each have created portfolios, and you've each shown them to future employers. So curious as to what is one thing that each of you wish you'd known as you were applying for these opportunities when it comes to your portfolio? Curious about that.
That's a great question.
Totally putting you each on the spot.
I wish I made it shorter in my reel. Because then, like when you first start, like you want to put everything in, and then at the same time, if you think about how people would hire, they probably get a bunch of application in a day, and how do we kind of condense and pick the best one, and kind of put that forward? That kind of make it short and sweet, especially like all the attention span that's getting shorter nowadays. I think short might be the better route.
I think for me, I didn't so much struggle with cutting it down because I'm very self-critical and I will wipe everything out if I don't feel like it's up to where I want to be. But one thing that I wish I had when I was applying is just more self-confidence in myself, because employers are going to gravitate towards the energy that you're giving them, and if you believe in yourself and you believe in the work that you're presenting them, then they're more likely to want to bring you onto their team. Whereas if you're very putting yourself down and just unsure of the projects, then they're going to be like, oh well, if you're not sure about yourself, I think you could be good, but I don't know. So I think I just wish I showed up with more self-confidence.
On the self-confidence tip, I wish I remembered, and I mean, this is something that you just work through, not to compare yourself to other portfolios. Your portfolio is your portfolio, so have the confidence in the work that you make as much as in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and self-confidence isn't always something that disappears as you rise in your roles, I think. Something I think we all struggle with at some form or another as we work in new companies, as we collaborate with other artists that we're not as familiar with, and getting to know each other as, talent. I don't think it disappears. I wish it would. With regards to the next steps, what are each of your goals? You're each constantly rising in your respective careers. How do you see your future? What's your ideal job? What's your dream job? Again, putting you very much on the spot.
I don't know.
I'm fortunate to say I'm living the dream job right now. So I'm very appreciate you in the back. Yeah.
So some applause in the back.
So working to get to this point has been the goal. I would say the newest goal is I really do want to sit at the writer's table and just, head to head my own particular story, and just, see all of the people that work with me, just sort of bring the visions that I have to life. But dream job is being lived as we speak.
I also feel very fortunate to be where I am and to get to do what I am right now. I think a lot has shifted since I graduated, because when I was in year seats, I was very much like, it's Pixar or bust, and if I don't make it, then I don't make it. But I've found that going to, having the opportunities to go to all these different studios has been really great for me, because I got to meet people and get to do these projects and learn skills that I had no idea that I would have loved doing had I only had my sight on one thing. So now at this point in my career, I'm just very open to where I'm supposed to go, like where I'm gonna go next, and just seeing what happens. And we talk about rejection, and I've always tried my best to see it as redirection, even if it's not the easiest thing to do in the moment. But when I look back on my journey and how many different places I've gone and where I am now, that's definitely been my case. Rejection is just redirection, and you'll be where you're meant to be when you're meant to be there.
Rejection is redirection. I really love that. Thank you. I'm going to steal that and
That's a good one.
observe that myself.
Yeah, I think overall, I kind of work at so many different places at the moment. Like, I kind of started out in the production studio, design studio, and then went from that side to the client side. So it's always been like a vary for me. So to me, like, working is a continuous journey of finding new things to do. So that really, for me, didn't have a plan on the perfect dream job. It's more about just what else can I do? What more can I make?
Mm-hmm. Like constantly evolving, constantly challenging yourself, new softwares, new experiences. Well, I appreciate each of you bearing with all of my questions, and this is obviously wonderful getting each of your insights, but we obviously are here to address all of your questions. So with that said, I believe we'll be setting up for a Q&A of sorts.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, we'll have you go first, and then I'll...
How long did it take for the stuff you made in school, how long did it take for that to no longer be in your portfolio, for you to have enough to...
Can we trouble you for your name as well? Because we'd love to get
My
to
name
know
is
you.
Jesse. I'm a fourth-year student at SVA.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to meet you, Jesse.
So is that question clear?
Yeah.
Should I rephrase it?
The film that you saw on the screen was my thesis film, Run Little Boy. That I graduated 2019. That piece probably won't leave my portfolio anytime soon, just because it's one of my most masterful pieces. I say that humbly, but I would say, aside from that, if you're just stepping in from an undergrad standpoint, usually you give your shelf life about 1 year to 2 years before you start, unless you just grinding out work consistently back and forth. Then of course you'll give your newer work some space to show and shine. But maybe 1 to 2 years.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks, Jesse.
That's a really good question, though.
Yeah, it's a very thoughtful question.
Hello, my name is Chavez Sanchez. I'm a storyboard artist at a small firm called Clio Studios, LLC.
Nice.
I might be the only non-college student here.
You're
But,
not.
cool.
We promise.
So my question is actually for you, Dominic. Would you say that there is still, because you were saying that at Titmouse that there was an expansion for storyboard artists, would you say that there's still a high demand for skilled draftsmen in that field?
Absolutely. I will try and find you after. There's a wonderful woman named Ellen Sue who handles all the recruiting in that regard. So when it comes to new shows that we pick up, they're going to need people to work for production for that. But yes, short answer is yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ellen Sue is fantastic. Great shout out.
Hey, my name is Tim. I'm an independent animator. My question is basically, for someone who's working on their own, how would you transition to working for more higher budget clients? Like, how would you, what avenues would you say would lead to working for more higher budget clients? And sort of kind of a smaller half question on there, since we work so much on the computer all the time, do you guys have any personal methods to do stuff off the computer? Any of your pipeline that you try to transition off the computer to give yourself a break from the screens, maybe?
When you're doing design animation, like anything kind of comes along, like, I try to use a sketchbook a lot, just to be that kind of moves you away from the computer before you from the planning stage, and like really like the inspiration can kind of come from anywhere, like to kind of go around, find the right inspiration for what you want to do.
Okay.
And then for higher clients, that's a tricky one. Yeah.
Do you feel it's easier to get it's easier to start out through working with another company for larger clients, or I guess that would be ideal, right? To start with a company and then to transition.
Are you doing 2D or 3D animation?
Yeah, I do 2D. Yeah.
Okay. And is more within motion graphics or like?
No, like a lot of character-based
Character-based.
animation and stuff, yeah. Like music videos and stuff like that.
I would say so it's nice to start off with a company because you can understand the industry rate. And so when you want to do your side gigs and as you grow and as you become more, involved in the field that you're doing, you get to then name your price. And so when you meet people who want work from you, you tell them your price. If they say, oh, I can't do that, you part ways or you adjust as necessary. If they can afford it, cool. So it's a matter of really just building your stamina in the current space that you're in right now, and then over time you'll sort of build a clientele, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and often to your point, when you're working at a studio where you're sort of expanding upon your portfolio or your roster or whatnot, you'll be partnered with producers and fellow executive producers who might be introducing you to clients who might be recurring. And I've seen more often than not, artists branch off, create their own studio off the back of their experience in their current studio, and most of the times the fellow directors that they've worked with or their fellow clients will follow them as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Trina. I am a animation major at the Fashion Institute of Technology. And I was wondering for each of you what your day-to-day kind of looks like in your jobs for each of you.
I'm kind of coming from the internal side, so I meet a lot of internal clients. So my day-to-day is meeting people and understanding what kind of type of animation or design they would need and speaking with them. And then from there, we kind of go into planning and then go into production. So it's kind of like 80% of meeting, 30% work.
Hi, Trina. I'm very lucky because I think I'm on the opposite end of that. I would say I'm about 30% meetings and 80% work, which we like because we like to be able to do what we need to do. As a lighter, I usually always go in and the first thing I do is I check the render farm to make sure nothing's set on fire the night before and that we're good to go. And once we get past that hurdle, then it's like, okay, I'll start going into my dailies meetings or group calls, whatever needs to be addressed. And then you work on whatever shots you're assigned, and then maybe you have a wrap meeting towards the end of the day. Depends on the company, but usually something like that.
I have a meeting every 2 weeks. So yeah.
You are living the dream.
I'm super envious.
I'm envious too.
So usually meetings for me happen on what we call kickoff week. So that we'll call it a Monday. I have a meeting that lasts about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, just going over a particular episode. And then for the rest of the week, I'm just making sure that I deliver my drawing quota for the day for each page of each script. And then I close my laptop and I'll walk away. Yeah.
So jealous.
And then I open it back up so I can watch Hulu.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Hi, my name is Nabila, and I actually realized I wanted to become an animator after graduating with a sociology degree. So my question really was, do you have any tips for someone in my position where I don't really have many connections in the art world? I am developing the skill set, but I do feel a bit lost on how to get the real basics in that I feel like you get if you do study animation in college. I was wondering if you had any tips for someone in my place to develop a portfolio to compete with those who have graduated from animation.
Do you know what specifically you want to do in animation,
Yeah.
or you just know you want to be in the industry?
I've been doing a lot on Blender,
Okay.
and I've been really enjoying it. And I do want to do a master's in animation, but I'm
Nice.
trying to build a portfolio that I can apply to that and grants as well.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a foot in it without
A saving grace for me, shout out to SVA, was continuing education programs. So if it's in the budget, find courses that, align themselves with what it is you're interested in animation-wise, and then that'll help you get a portfolio. And at the same time, it'll also help you build connections with people who probably already are in the industry, or other students who could even help kind of get you a leg in terms of, application dates and stuff like that. But definitely, I would say definitely try and find programs that you can engage in classes outside that provide you continuing education courses.
A couple more things to add to that is, luckily, our industry doesn't have an age limit, so you're never too
Right.
late to start. And Also, luckily, you're not trying to recreate the Matrix or anything with what we're doing. So that comes down to just being a smart artist again. Find those portfolios that have been successful, or find those people that have been successful at getting hired at the studios and the jobs that you want to work for, and see what it was about their work that got them hired, and then try to reverse engineer that process back to your own work and take those skills. And then also I would say mentorship is just really invaluable no matter what industry or what point in life you're in. So if there's someone that you really connect with or look up to, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to them and get insight and advice.
Yeah, I also have been pointing to the young designer to like school motions. Like there's quite a few like online schools that's kind of available where they're more online based. They do offer like smaller mentorship, and then it's like a course throughout like like online semester, like, and then they do work with people who are in the industry as well. So it's a nice kind of gateway into like what you're looking for.
Okay, thank you. And I was actually wondering about your mentorship program, what the name of it is too, or is it something we can apply to, or?
It's something that I run on my website. So my website is just my name, amandasparso.com, and you can reach out to me on there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you walk away, something else I would add is there are a lot of individuals to reach out to on LinkedIn too. If someone has your dream role and a career that you aspire to, reaching out to them directly. Most people are quite friendly and quite nice, especially during these rather unique times that we're in, and might be available for a digital coffee or a conversation of sorts to connect with them and hear how they got their start. So they might also be a great way to expand upon your network and really grow as an artist.
Hi, my question is actually quite related to what she just asked. My name is Debbie. I actually recently graduated from Columbia, double majoring in computer science and environmental biology, so I came also not from an art background. I'm currently working as a software engineer. So my question is more about like what kind of skills should I be looking to gain apart from like general software engineering skills, and how can I pivot to a technical role in the animation industry from a general software engineering background?
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah. Me? See?
I mean, you.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it depends what you want to do in that 3D space. Coming from a software engineering background, I don't know too much, but I know that when I have had to interact with IT, they do a lot of the back-end work, which involves writing scripts or programs to make the life of us easier. So a lot more automation and render wrangling and things like that. But unfortunately, I'm more on the pipeline CG side, so I don't know if I can help you too much.
There's a lot happening in the experiential space, particularly when it comes to everything that Epic is putting out right now, and they've got a lot of really great references and videos that might be of interest to you if you do want to explore the world of Unreal or go the route of Unity as well. So there's a lot of your current skills that will translate quite seamlessly into an opportunity into that space if that's something that you're looking to aspire to. But a lot of really free softwares and tutorials out there that will at least either pique your interest or not and help you open doors or let you know what you may not want to be doing more of. So that's some of my advice as well.
I guess like a follow-up question to that would be, have you interacted with any software engineers like in your current company in your role, and kind of like what tools do they work with, or like what kind of skills do they have? If that's a far-fetching question, that's totally okay.
My understanding with CG is like there's Python's like the language.
I would say
So that's
definitely connect with me over LinkedIn, and I will have a better answer to your question later, because I do know software engineers, but I don't want to just guess or give you something that's not 100% accurate. So connect with me, and I will tell you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm an MFA student, first year.
And what's your name?
My name is Zaina.
Nice to meet you.
Actually, it's a question for Dominic. So I know that you're a storyboard artist. After getting your scripts from all the writers, are you able to input your creative ideas into your storyboards, or is it just like a set way? And if you are, what are the ways that you can do that?
General answer, yes. There's definitely room to sort of put my own creative flavor into what the script says. Usually speaking, it'll happen one of two ways. Either I just do it on following the path and the guideline of what my director has given me note-wise, And then from there, I go. Also, if there's something in the script that may not translate to me as clearly as I would like it to, I'll run it by my director first, and then I give him my interpretation of it, and then he'll ping me back, okay, yes, cool, do this, or no, don't do that. And so they'll give me clarity in that regard. But there's freedom to sort of mess around and do your own thing when it comes to doing boards.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hi, my name is Zia. I'm a student at Hunter College, a media student. But my question is more like very role specific, but it's out of curiosity. Is there any piece of critique that you guys encountered during your careers that you felt really pushed your work to the next level?
I think it's for design, it's always like constant self-critique and also just evaluating what's being out there as well, as much as, so like my creative director definitely kind of pushed me towards like the understanding of type, and it's like, hey, sometimes like they just tell you, hey, this is flat out wrong, and then like even like I like people to be more direct, and then like really kind of pointed to exactly what the problem is. That really helpful, like in the design world, where you can kind of propel yourself to have a better understanding and look back on these type of things.
I think having really good reference, like really take the time to gather reference, will help you and save you time in the end, because especially like with computer art, you can change anything in a fly, but that also means you can be sitting there navigating through a void of ideas for a lot longer than you need to be if you have a board of reference that you're trying to hit at the end of the day.
Composition was one of the things that I really had to like tap into when it came to creating, because when it comes to storyboarding, you're always staging things. So you want to make sure that your composition does what the shot calls for. So don't be afraid to take wide angles. Don't be afraid to get close with the camera. Just make it dynamic as possible. So understanding your composition is one of the greatest critiques I was given.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Addy, and I'm a MFA student at the Fierstein Graduate School of Cinema Arts at Brooklyn College. And on top of the technical talk tonight, the topic of confidence has been here. And I recently got an animation internship at Big Star Motion Design, and I've been talking to a lot of artists there, and imposter syndrome seems to be a major thing that a lot of people experience. And I was wondering if any of you guys have experienced that, and if so, any tips and tricks you guys tips or tricks you guys able to overcome this?
Oh boy.
It's a great question.
Do we have time?
How much time do we have?
I do a lot of this work with my mentees because I find that imposter syndrome is such a big thing that holds them back. And what's great to know about that is nobody goes into something, no matter what line of industry they're in or what role they're stepping into, knowing everything at once. And that's completely fine. And it really is staying present in the moment, taking that task one day at a time and being like, okay, this is what I have today, and knowing that you're going to grow on it. I think something that we learned in CG is it's okay to fail fast. That was like a phrase that we would use, like if you're learning something and it's not working out for you, that doesn't mean that you're gonna be a bad artist for the rest of your life. Fail fast on the project, take the lesson from it, and move on to something else. And also, lastly, when it comes to imposter syndrome, a lot of it is tied to limiting beliefs that we've either experienced from situations in our lives or just that we've self-fed ourselves, because we can be really hypercritical, and knowing where those sources come from and just sitting with those emotions will help you to move past that imposter syndrome just a bit, to know like, okay, like this is why I feel this way, but is that true? Like usually it's not, and then you can step into where you want to go.
Awesome, that was a great answer, thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Turret. I'm a fourth year student at Pratt Institute, and I'm also one of Kat's students.
Hey.
I hope this isn't like a too complicated question, but I was kind of thinking about how the animation industry is very competitive, and so it's very important to have a strong portfolio, especially when you're a student. But also, you kind of have to like juggle that with getting in deadlines on a lot of work you have to do for your classes. So it's kind of hard to focus on like making really polished portfolio pieces. And it's also like you kind of have to have a, you don't necessarily have to have a job lined up when you graduate, but it helps. But do you think not necessarily having a job lined up sort of like inhibits your progress in getting into the industry, or is it more important to have your ducks in a row before you graduate?
Great question.
Great question. I'm going to mess up the phrase. There's something that says about you don't have to get ready if you're getting ready now. Something like that. And so I messed it up completely. Ducks in a row is always is the best way to go, just because it sort of prepares you for when you cross that stage. Even if you don't necessarily get a job immediately upon graduating, you have everything that you need to pitch, right? So I would. While I wouldn't necessarily say it benefits you more to have a job, though I'm sure that's what we all want, to have a job upon graduating. So long as you have a succinct, solid portfolio for all the positions that you are driving and striving for, and you just have that ready for you even after you graduate, just keep working at pitching that, and that'll put you in a better position than most. That's all I got.
Hello. My name is Bach. I'm a student at NYU, majoring in the television program with like a concentration in CGI development. My question is about unions, because you're at the front line at Titmouse, like your LA branch is unionizing. There's a huge animator strike going on right now in New York City and all over the place. You guys are on the front lines too, so like, what are your thoughts on like unions and how are they going to work and apply to you guys as you guys are progressing through your jobs and careers? Because it's very similar to the writer's guild strike of like 2008 too. Right? Your thoughts?
Great question. So I would start by saying this. I consider myself a newbie still in the industry just because I started in 2019. And so I'm still very much learning of the complaints and the issues. And when I say complaints, I mean the valid issues that artists go through trying to make sure that we, put people's projects to the front screen. So my opinion on the unions right now, especially seeing that New York just kind of got its own established, it's important that representation be present so that when it comes to the table of, the upper heads, you feel represented when people have those conversations about the difficulties that you're going through. So I would say that the unions have been a blessing.
Hi, my name is Austin Whittle. I just graduated from the University of Texas at Dallas a few months ago and moved out here for a marketing job in the engineering field. So in the meantime, I'm just adding to my portfolio and practicing. And I hate to just ask another networking question, but is there like an animation guild or something sort of like suited towards just young people socializing where I can meet people, animators in New York, because I have no friends?
You have many friends.
We'll be your friends. No.
Keep going to events like this, stay active on your socials and see what's coming up, meet people here, connect with us. I would also recommend platforms like Access VFX or Rise Up because they have really great group chats and I think Facebook pages there where you can meet other artists and talk to them.
Siggraph is another great one. My lovely co-teacher, Emily Maithner at SVA, she runs a website called Find Spark that also offers a sense of community to those of us who are, in the world, interested in the world of animation, VFX, and other areas as well.
Can you say the name again?
Findspark.com.
Find Spark, and then something VFX.
Access VFX.
Access VFX.
Access VFX. Thank you so much.
And also, are you a film buff? So definitely look up film festivals because they happen consistently especially within New York. So that's also a great place to do some networking. Highly suggest film festival.
Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Noah. I go to NYU. And I guess my issue that I'm having right now is that I'm not like directly majoring in like something like animation, for example. And so I've had the opportunity to explore like little bits and pieces of like motion graphics, like with After Effects, or I've done motion capture and like Unreal Engine and Motion Builder and Off-the-Track and stuff. And then I've done like 3D modeling and things like that. But I feel like I have very small skill. Like I've been able to learn a little bit of everything, but I'm not like super. Like I haven't been able to really dive into any one program or any one specialty specifically. So I'm always worried that like after graduation, my portfolio might be a little bit weak because of that. I was wondering if you guys have any advice.
Do you have any, like, among experimenting, like, all the different programs, like, have you starting to realizing, like, how much focus you, like, certain things that pick your interest a little bit more than the other, or
Yeah,
you still...
right now I'm really interested in motion capture and, like, visual effects, I think.
I think it's always great to experiment and kind of getting the gamut of, like, stuff you can do, but then I think even like as you build in your portfolio, it's always good to find that one focus that interests you the most, and you can kind of really kind of dive and expand on that a little bit more. That will kind of help you to at least to focus on that certain area, and then you can start like looking for type of related work in that area.
Yeah, find what, to Frank's point, find what you gravitate towards as well, you know, and try to expand upon that and challenge yourself in that area, because I think you might surprise yourself.
Hi, my name is Patricia. I'm an animation student at Mercy College, and this question's for Dominic. You mentioned character designing in the portfolio, so I don't really feel confident in my art skills, even though I am a junior. Is there like a certain way you should go about trying to get into the character design part of animation if you don't feel confident?
Not to put you on the spot, what do you not feel confident in per se? Is it your line style? Is it the characters that you're developing yourself?
So I would say like my style is anime because that's what I was kind of interested in.
Gotcha.
So also that, and I'm kind of really bad on shading. I'm working on it.
Shading, okay. So one of the best things with those, especially for shading, is just traditional drawing. So definitely take time, even if it's one day at least out the week, to tour your city and do some live drawing. When it comes to style, I'm sure you have a plethora of your favorite animations, right? Yeah. So go through that list and pick the animations that are of different drawing styles. Mm-hmm. Feel free to mimic those if you develop your own characters using those styles as an exercise. And that'll definitely help you sort of, get a taste of the palette that you have for yourself and help you build your confidence in creating your specific style when it comes to making characters. Okay. And don't feel bad, because I'm still growing in my character design realm too. So you're all good, you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not bad at shading, as you were saying, or textures rather. It's maybe not your strength. I would phrase it that way.
Thank you.
What she said, yes.
I'm afraid I've just been informed we only have time for one more question. With that said, we will be migrating out of the space to address questions one-on-one as well. Sorry, Rocky, and everyone. If you could be so kind as to.
My name is Jane, and I'm in the major of 3D computer animation from Fashion Institute of Technology. And my question is like preparing portfolio in terms of storyboard. Should I also have to upload the animatic of the storyboard as well? And regardless of whether the storyboard is about 10 minutes or 3 minutes animation, is it okay if I upload the full length of storyboard?
That's a great question. I'll try and find you after, because that can be a bit of an in-depth question. But to give you the simple answer, the animatics should be the last thing you upload. We do want to make sure that you have clickable storyboards so that somebody can flip through them and stop at each individual shot, and then click as they need to. I would say try to avoid uploading the PDFs that show rows of each individual shot. And animatics are nice to have. I would definitely say have maybe 2 or 3, but try to find the shorter side ones, just because humans in general have short attention spans. So if you can find an animatic that's maybe, even if you have to cut it down to maybe a minute or 2 minutes, that show the best side of the action and everything that you're showing.
You mean like 2 minutes of animatic? 2
minutes of animatic, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And probably no more than 2 or 3 of those. Make sure that the leading thing that you show in your portfolio are the actual physical boards.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Well, I'm afraid our time has come to an end. It's been such a pleasure kicking off this Wednesday night with every single one of you, hearing your insights, sharing your stories. Yes, perfect timing for applause. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we will still be lingering a little bit in case there are any lingering questions that you might want to address to each of us individually. But it's been such a pleasure connecting with you all. And
shout out to the host. Shout out to the moderator.
Thank you.
Sharing your valuable questions as well.